What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another review of The Boys, Season 4, Episode 6. This one is called Dirty Business. We are now back again to picking up storylines that we left off in the last episode. And for the most part, the episode plays pretty consistently with the rest of the season so far. Unfortunately, I'm going to say the show is starting to push the boundaries of whether I'm still willing to watch it or not. Um, I just got to be honest with everybody about that. Like, I don't know how much more of this show I can actually take. It's bordering on stupid to me. And by that, I mean, like, what they're doing with a lot of the characters. Basically, Frenchie is now out of sight, out of mind. He is in prison. He doesn't want to see Kamiko anymore. And Kamiko is wondering what the hell's going on with him. And she feels very lost without him. On some levels, that's an appropriate storyline. On other levels, it feels like a complete waste of time. Isn't shouldn't she be shouldn't she be dealing with other issues that are going on right now? Doesn't she have a problem with the shining lights? Doesn't she need to be helping like Huey and Mother's Milk or Billy or any of the other problems that are going on? She seems to just be kind of like floating in between and being a stopgap between other storylines instead of actually having her own. Whereas previous seasons, she's had a storyline. She was a pivotal part of the whole cast and crew. That seems to be the ultimate problem with the show this season is we can't seem to get the characters all on the same page. And I know in a previous episode I mentioned the characters keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And what I mean by that is you take a character like, say, Billy Butcher, you would think by now the rest of the characters in this show would understand what Billy is all about, what his motivations are, and whatnot. And he keeps saying to trust him. They really don't trust him like at all. And even Billy he keeps taking advantage of the trust situation between everybody else. They start to give him a little trust, he breaks it. And I know that's been a consistent thing since the beginning of the show, but it's also the definition of insanity. You keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. You would think the rest of the characters at this point would understand he's gonna be doing his own thing. If we're gonna trust him, maybe we should actually trust him at this point. Now, I don't know if that's in the comic books. Like I've said before, I haven't read the comics. I'm basing my opinions of this show based on just this show. And I seem to be struggling quite a bit with why a lot of the characters keep making these kind of same mistakes over and over again. Mother's Milk keeps trying to flip characters, the characters that don't want to be flipped. 8 Train seems to be coming around to the whole, all right, I'm helping you more than I really should, but he's enjoying being an actual hero. And he actually brought Mother's Milk, who collapsed due to some sort of heart issue. They said heart attack, but they also mentioned like if you have a real heart attack, you ain't getting up again. But 8 Train took him to an emergency room, or basically to a stretcher outside, and he was taken care of by a hospital, and he's going to be okay. But they seem to be playing up like Mother's Milk has this constant issue of like he's got some health concerns and about his family. His motivations still seem to be about the same. I would say that Mother's Milk is probably one of the most consistent characters throughout the last few seasons and this season. Like he seems to be pretty on point with, he's always been this way, and he doesn't seem to be flip-flopping his motivations too much. But then just like some of the other characters just aren't working anymore. I don't know if that's just me growing tired of them or I'm just tired of their stupidity. You got Starlight and Kamiko later on when they are dealing with what happened with Huey and they're working against like what was his name, Tech Knight. Let me double check on that. Yep, Tech Knight. And based on what Tech Knight had done to Huey, they just kind of hemmed and hawed over what to do and how to get information out of this sadomasochist, because he basically assaulted Huey in this episode, which I don't know if you are down for watching your heroes getting like basically assaulted in a show. And I know that this is pretty common for some shows to incorporate this. Like I know, like Game of Thrones. You talk about Game of Thrones, you talk about Walking Dead, you see your heroes get put in very bad situations. Sometimes they get beat up, they get this, that, or the other. For me with this show, I know they've done some like questionable and like very dark things in this show. And it used to be kind of interesting and it makes you want to feel for your heroes. But when you get to the point of assaulting one of the actual human beings in this show, who's supposed to be one of the main characters, and you actually have some sort of sexual assault on him, and at the end of the episode, he has a complete breakdown, and Starlight's just looking at him like a complete dumbass, and she tries to console him like he's lost his father, he's been assaulted by one of his heroes as a kid, who was basically a glorified knockoff Batman, but like a complete sicko. And granted, like I've said, each season's has had some like very sick, nasty shit happen. So it's not like I'm shocked by this. It's just at this point, you're really doing this to the one character left in this show who does not need to have something like this happen to his character. He's supposed to be our guide through this universe and through this show. And you may not agree with me. I didn't like this. This is not what I want to see one of my heroes go through. Now, I know like Billy and all the other characters, they've done some nasty shit. They've been part of nasty shit. They've, this, that. Yeah. Okay. And you could say the same thing about, Jack Quaid's character, but I don't want to see this happen. Like, this is just not where I feel like this show should be going. I feel like they're going way too much into this kind of angle of we need to go even further with the shock value. Now, like I said, I don't know if this is in the comics. This is largely in just the context of the show, but this is not what I want to see. Like the one remaining somewhat core character going through something this traumatic. I didn't appreciate it. I didn't like it. Granted, that's my opinion. That's just how I'm looking at the show now. And then basically at the end of the episode, now I'm going to circle around to now Billy Butcher, because I've been telling you, I've been a fan of Billy Butcher and of the Homelander and their storyline with the Son, and Anthony Starr, Carl Urban are fantastic. They're doing they're doing some outstanding work on this show. So I am not knocking the actors. I would never knock the actors on this show like at all. They're basically given what they've been written, and they're giving it as best as they can and the best as they are being directed. So a lot of my problems are largely on the writing and the directing. And yeah, I'm looking at you, Eric Kripke, and the show just continues to be a little too on the nose, political wise, a little too real. It's supposed to be escapist entertainment. We're supposed to be transported to another world. I know. I get it. I understand. I just feel like this season has just gone way too far over into this is actually happening. And there's been an interview recently about how, they didn't mean for this to be too on the nose. Well, now you're walking back some of your comments from other interviews. So I don't really appreciate that. Maybe you just should stop talking about shit like that, because clearly you've wanted to go down this route. And it's been a couple of years since the last season. And you've clearly incorporated a lot of politics, a lot of identity, virtue signaling, just about freaking everything you can think of has been put into this show. And it is very one-sided. And if you don't like what I'm saying and you don't like hearing that, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to shut up. So ultimately, I'm going to get now back to Billy here. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because you're not here. You're here to hear an honest opinion about this episode, and from somebody who just, I've liked this show. I love the first season. I know a lot of people don't like the second season. A lot of people tapped out on that one. I liked it still, but it was definitely a downturn. Season 3 was an even more of a downturn. Like, we keep having these ebbs and flows. We start way up here and we're kind of dipping and going down like a little chart of like, man, it's just diminishing returns. Every time there's a good moment, we follow it up by 6 stupid things that keep happening. Like what you do with different characters, different storylines. Yeah, it keeps you on your toes. You don't know what's going to happen next. But last episode, we had fucking flying sheep hooked up on V, things like that. Like, it's just stupid. Like, instead of coming up with something clever, you're doing something stupid, or you're just doing it for shock value. Now, what they did with this one with Billy, and maybe I should have seen this coming, maybe I shouldn't have, but what they ended up doing with Billy and what Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character was as Kessler. Kessler, basically what's going on is we're having a Fight Club situation. Billy Butcher is having a figment of imagination. We saw that with the wife. And now Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character of Kessler is the opposite of her and a figment of Billy Butcher's imagination. Basically, when the episode ended with that reveal, I'm just kind of stared at the screen and I was just like, oh, okay, you actually could have actually done something interesting, and you went with basically a stupid trope from something from that we've seen a million times. It had no impact on me. I love his character. I mean, it's so complex. He's dark, he's twisted. Yeah. I like Carl Urban's portrayal, and I've always been invested in Billy Butcher's character because of what happened with his wife, with Homelander. Like, I've been following this story along for like 3.5 seasons now. And now you're telling me like what's going on with him physically and now mentally is he's now fracturing in his mind, and he's visioning multiple personalities, and they're, or angel and devil on the shoulder kind of metaphor going on. I don't know. I just found it to be kind of a disappointing letdown. It just felt stupid. Let's just go ahead and just say that straight up. So ultimately, they went through this whole arc of the storyline of, hey, Homelander and the Seven are having this party. They're going to convince some of the elite in America to try and take down like the election. We got to get this lady into office, and we're going to have her as our puppet, and not going to get political, but basically what this is setting up is just that's the ultimate storyline here. And then you got like the boys that are kind of walking in, trying to get more information about what's going on, what they're up to. They're using Tech Knight's prisons, that he's in control of a lot of prisons. They're going to start putting people in intern camps for like political opposition, this, and like anybody who opposes them. They're intending to basically put everybody in a freaking prison that did not agree with them. So that's basically the storyline of this episode. It feels very disappointing. I feel like the show has completely lost its way and its focus. And unfortunately, at this point, I don't know how much longer I want to keep talking about this show, other than every episode just feels like I'm just beating this over the dead horse. The show is stupid. It has devolved drastically down a path that it really doesn't need to. You had a core story with decent characters. You can still work with these characters being good, light, dark, bad. You can have things happen to them. You can have things not happen to them. The choices they're making this season within the context of this own show and based off of previous seasons feels like we're going through the motions. Like, do you even care anymore? And do you even care about your audience anymore? Because at this point, it feels like you're telling your audience to go fuck off, and you're just going to do whatever the fuck you feel like. That's stupid to me. And I'm starting to feel that now as an audience member and a fan of the show. I've stuck with this show when other people have backed out because I've still enjoyed characters, and there are moments that I've enjoyed. I'm finding less and less of those this season. It's hard to care about the boys anymore. And this episode just is an exclamation point on all of that. Really makes me wonder about doing any more videos. But if it can convey to some people, like, this show is shit and it's not worth it anymore, and I save you the headache of, hey, some of the things he's saying is making sense. Yes, I'd like him to get into more details. Yes, I'd like to have him have more examples. But when you just want just somebody to give you just a straight up opinion on something, and yeah, I would love to have a breakdown for 2 hours, but I just finished watching this, and these are my raw thoughts. this is unfiltered. This is just me just trying to be honest with everybody out there. Like this isn't good anymore, and it's unfortunate. I the actors, I do not blame them at all. Just want to repeat that. I'm going to write out this season, but as far as season 5 goes, I guess time will tell, but how this show is going to end, I don't know. I really don't know how this season's going to go, but clearly they want to have Firecracker lactating without being pregnant. She's hopped up on drugs and she's now giving Homelander his milk that he's been desiring and a new mother figure. So, yep, I'm going to leave you on that fine thought. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you like this video, hey, hit the like button. And if you have a comment about this episode, drop it down below. Whatever you want to say, that's fine. And if you like these videos, please hit the little bell notification, hit the subscribe button. We will finish out this season, but we also have other content on our channel. Like to talk about forgotten TV shows from years past, like to talk about classic and cult classic films. We even have a live stream. So thank you everybody for tuning in. See you all on the next one. And if you survive, please come again.